Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, Out of Voice Radio. So today, we are looking at another Salazizzle card. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently, we haven't had enough already. Annoyingly, they all tend to be quite good, so I suppose they warrant looking at. And for those of you thinking, hang on a second, isn't it pronounced Salazzle? Yes, it is. But I'm still annoyed that only the female Salandits evolve, and I didn't know that. Not until I'd leveled up my Salandit way more than I would have needed to, only to find out it was never going to evolve. So, being a psychic Pokemon is actually pretty good typing for hitting things like Garbodor, Espeon GX, etc., except none of the attacks here actually do any damage, so your typing in terms of hitting for weakness is irrelevant. Of course, you are weak to Psychic, which means you are weak to those same Pokemon like Espeon, like Garbodor, which is rather annoying because those cards tend to be rather good. Whoopsie daisy. 110 HP is about standard for a stage 1, not great, not terrible, and the retreat cost of 1 is really nice, especially considering that your attacks here that you're using are for a single energy. Speaking of those attacks, for 1 psychic energy, you get to search your deck for 2 cards and put them into your hand. This is essentially Aeroblitz from that Talonflame card we've all been using for a while, except you don't do any damage. It's not on a stage 2, but you don't have the ability that Talonflame has that allows you to start with it. Now, we've seen time and time again that searching for 2 cards is good. We've seen it with the aforementioned Talonflame, cards like Teammates and Twins, even Computer Search. Searching for any cards is good. It really, really helps you to set up. My worry here is that essentially this is a turn 2 attack at best. Now, it doesn't have to be a turn 2 attack. You can use a Tapu Lele, use 1 to tag to search for a Wally, which is still in the format as it was reprinted in Generations, and then you can just evolve up into Salazzle, and then you can use this. And if you can pull this off, this is a great setup attack, ladies and gentlemen. Do not sleep on how good and how useful and how wonderful and how brilliant it is to be able to search your deck for any 2 cards, because it just gives you way too many options. I just worry that you go first, take a turn, go second, and then you start searching for cards. It could be good in some decks to set up, but this isn't a colourless attack. If you could tech this into any deck, I would adore this attack even on a stage 1. But you can't. So it really is, are you willing to spend at least 2 turns getting this going just to be able to search for some cards? And of course, let's address the elephant in the room for a moment. You can be End, and if your opponent plays an N, then you lose those cards, and let's face it, we've all played with or against or watched other people play Aeroblitz just to be End, because ending is generally what happens there. But then again, we don't have Versus Seeker anymore. Your opponent can still use Tapu Lele to search for the N, but it is less likely at the moment that you will be End out of those cards than it has been at times in the past. So it's not the end of the world. Boom, nailed it. Now, there's several different things you can do with this. You can go and get a rare candy in a stage 2 Pokemon, guarantee that evolution next turn. You can make sure you've got a supporter for next turn, whether that's an Ace Roller to heal, a Guzma to take a prize, a Sycamore to keep you going. You can reliably search for special energy, which is something that generally at the moment we're not able to do. The best we've got is Energy Lotto, and we all know that isn't a reliable way to search it out. And of course, you can use this to reduce your reliance on items, which will really help you against Garbodor. Now, you're getting KO'd if you got 3 items in the discard by Garbodor, but you can use this to help you set up with very few items in the discard, so that you're not vulnerable to Garbodor for quite some time. You can also just play and then search for disruption cards, Team Flare Grunt, Enhanced Hammer, etc. You can make sure that they're in your deck, and you don't need to try and draw into them. Search them out with Salazizzle, and off you go. Now there is a second attack here for 1 psychic energy, automatic poison. You place 4 damage counters between turns, rather than 1. Now, of course, we've got Sir Viper here from Guardians Rising, which allows you to do an extra damage counter with poison between turns. So in theory, you go and get yourself 4 Sir Viper on the bench here, and it's from Burning Shadows, not Guardians Rising, my apologies. And then all of a sudden you're landing 8 damage counters between turns with poison, rather than the 4 you thought you were going to be doing. 8 damage counters with poison is amazing. A lot of people like the look of Toxapex GX. Now, gonna be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't rate Toxapex GX. I don't think it's terribly good. Weakness to Garbodor, way too expensive. But it's got super intense poison that puts 10 damage counters between turns. That alone makes it interesting. Well, single energy, non-GX, 8 damage counters per turn. That's pretty tasty. Although, of course, bench space does then start to become a little bit of an issue, because that's 4 of your 5 bench spots taken up with Sir Viper. I mean, goodness, if you go into the expanded format, you drop a Verbank City gym down and boom, all of a sudden, you are doing 10 poison damage counters between turns for 1 energy on a non-GX. Now, of course, your opponent can switch or retreat or whatever, but if they don't get out the active, if they leave that poison on there, then by the time it comes back to you, they've taken 200 damage from poison. Most Pokemon cannot deal with that. And we've even got a use here for that stadium I told you about just the other day, Sea of Emptiness, that I will try and pop a link to in the description if I remember, which keeps all of these special conditions between turns. So you poison your opponent, they're taking 4 to 8 damage counters between turns, they evolve, they're still taking 4 to 8 damage counters between turns. And this is kind of cool, because let's say you get something like a Gardevoir. Gardevoir's the best deck in the format right now, so it's a good example to use. You've got 110 HP, so they'll need 3 energy to KO you, 4 total, 120. You get 4 Sir Viper down, you poison them, they take 8 damage counters. They take the KO on you, take 8 more, go up to 16. You do absolutely nothing, or in fact, you use Nasty Plot to search for any 2 cards, then they get KO'd. And that's what I really like about Salazizzle here as well. The fact that when you've got those turns where they're gonna be KO'd by poison anyway, you can use that to just search for any 2 cards. Now, there are plenty of ways around this. Your opponent can play an Ace Roller to pick up their Pokemon. They can play a Comfy in a deck like Gardevoir to be immune to special conditions. They can play Pokemon Center Lady to heal 6 damage counters and get rid of all special conditions. And of course, Guzma now is also a switch. But if they don't get around it, this adds up super quickly. One thing you could do is play something like a Hypno as well, so you can put them to sleep. Although you do put yourself to sleep as well, which is slightly annoying. Hey ho, these things happen. Now there is the other Salazizzle from Sun and Moon, but it uses fire energy and it gives poison and burn while you're already poisoning, so it adds burn as well. And to be honest, it might be worth playing one of these as a tech, but you're only adding burn, so it's not amazing. Burn, 20 damage between turns, flip a coin if heads, no more burn. And of course there is Salazzle GX, which is pretty good, it's got good attacks. But again, it's fire energy, so you'd have to use fire or rainbow. And if you use Rainbow, Kartana becomes an issue. That's coming out in the same Crimson Invasion set. The ability is an enhanced hammer. I really like this for the poison, but we need a more reliable attack. Well, the good news is, this is a psychic Pokemon. So just play it with Garbodor, play it with Espeon. I could see Salazzle Garbodor being a pretty good deck. You've got ability lock to slow down a bunch of decks. You get the poison and searching in the early game, and then in the late game, because they're using items to get around all of your poison, in comes Garbodor to sweep. I'm not saying it's going to be a great deck, but I am saying there's something there it's worth playing around with. And of course, if you're using Nasty Plot to search for any 2 cards, that means getting a Garbodor with an item attached will be much easier than usual. I am going to give Salazzle between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. This is fun, but it's just a little bit fragile for my liking, and we don't have a really good other attacker. But Salazzle, Seviper, Garbodor, maybe it will only ever be a rogue deck, but it's gotta be worth trying out. But I want to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments. Go nuts, be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. There's going to be a live stream of PTCGO at 7 PM tonight, UK time. I heartily suggest you all come and join in. If you want to support the pod, get some bonus podcasts, etc., you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.